morning, Amy. How are you?
Hi, Candy.
So I am going to add a little tidbit here. We are taping this on the Friday after Election Day, and we're not going to talk about anything about that, but I just want everybody to think about when you're listening to this, what you are doing and what you are reading and thinking about the morning of the unknown still post-election. And then I will also add that we are on episode 16 and we're going to talk about stop apologizing. And Amy looked back, we started on June 18th. So it's been a fun ride. I so look forward to these conversations. And it actually is hard to believe that we're on number 16 and what's all happened since June. But here we are.
Right. When you think about where we started this and where the conception came because we were locked down and, wanted to have these conversations. It's kind of fun how we've grown in this podcast and all the topics we've talked about. I think it's been fun.
And Amy, somebody asked me, they said, well, how do you come up with these topics or where do they come from? Well, they do come from people who listen to us or give us ideas, but I can't tell you how many times I've sent Amy or she sent me a random text that said, we really need to talk about this. Like for instance, this week, a topic that came up for me was, you can't always get what you want. I kept thinking of that song from the Rolling Stones when we were on election night and both sides are just, and it's just like, you can't always get what you want. And I thought, what a great topic. And Amy and I went back and forth on it, and we'll come up with, if I tell you of anything, I feel like we have this whole list of topics and we think we know what we're going to tackle and something new comes up and
I know our ideas keep getting pushed down and then come back up. It's kind of like what's relevant in the moment.
What's relevant in the moment.
Yeah.
And so today's topic is stop apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
And this one for me, we had it on the list, maybe in some different words, I think. It was one of our basic themes, but what came up to me, the story that brought it top of mind to me was I was on a Zoom call with some friends and they were female. And one friend was just sharing some frustrations at work. And I tell you, just like you have a conversation with friends, there's always some frustrations. And I didn't think twice about it other than we gave her some feedback and, oh, darn, and then like a day later, she sent a group email out apologizing to everyone and going on and on about how she shouldn't have brought that up. And it was, all the reasons why maybe she shouldn't have brought that up and second guessing herself. And I looked at it not knowing how to respond, but my immediate reaction was stop apologizing. Why? And back to women, why do we feel like we have to apologize for so many things? And a lot of times the apologizing is second guessing. So it took me aback a little bit. So that's what kind of started this conversation and got me noodling on it. And then I brought it up to Amy and we've both been thinking about it. So, share your thoughts, Amy, on your approach to the subject, stop apologizing, and especially as it relates to women.
Yeah. So I found an article this morning and I didn't put this in our notes, so this is new to you. And it's talking about the psychology about why women apologize more than men. And it is actually, we don't apologize more. So they measured we both apologize the same percentage.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But women, it says our threshold is lower for what we think we need to apologize for.
Bingo.
Exactly. So if we think we woke up somebody in the middle of the night, we're going to apologize. And so, we assume more error on our part than men do. That's just kind of that's what the research shows.
And, the mathematician in me is going to say, okay, if we go equally and we do more on lower, that would mean that the men are doing worse crimes because how would the percentage be the same? But anyway, I agree. I'm just being funny there.
I know their
Thinking through
threshold's a
the
little
math,
high.
I was just so you know, as the polls were coming in, I've done statistical
I
analysis
know.
to try to extrapolate out by districts. If you want to know, I do have projections, and it doesn't have to do with who I like. You can go and do see what the voter turnout is and do those. But I was doing the quick math with this, and
I
yeah,
know.
that's what I would
I
say.
appreciate you doing that, because I haven't been. You've been texting me your math, and I'm like, all right, okay.
I'm gonna believe you. If only there probably are bets in Vegas, but we'll just let it go at this point.
Right.
But that kind of gets back to your point with my friend. Is she apologized for something that was so insignificant? She was overthinking, and I think my comment was, "You got to stop overthinking this." That's how I felt about it. You're overthinking things, and you know what really bothered me? It wasn't her response. It was that I knew she had used an incredible amount of time and brain power worrying about this. That's what bothered me, is how much energy was put toward overthinking this and worrying about it when nobody thought anything about it. And I'm like, you could have, she told us about a lot of good things she had going on in her life. And even like making steps to change it. I'm like, I know she took all that time of bad energy that went to no positive. And my passion with helping people and my inner self trying to do the right thing is, how much time do we spend noodling over things that are irrelevant or don't push us anywhere positively and a step ahead?
Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother topic, I think.
Right.
As the worrying, the people, the amount of worrying we do. I have a group of women that I meet with once a month. And it's funny, last month, I got home and I was very relaxed. I was like, oh, I'm just so relaxed. But typically, we have such intense conversations that I come home and I can't sleep for a couple of hours because I'm thinking about the stuff that I said or the stuff that other people said and what resonate. But it's usually pretty intense because we challenge each other, which is good. It's very healthy. But this last time, and this was probably middle of October-ish, I think were so exhausted with everything going on that we didn't do a lot of challenging. It was more encouraging. And so that I didn't have any of that worry or that thought in my head, and my brain wasn't going crazy. But a lot of times I do want to reach out and say, okay, guys, I should not have said this. I may have pushed it a little too far. And sometimes I do that. And sometimes others do that. But so we do apologize some if we feel like it's needed.
And do you find sometimes that people apologize over things that I would say are almost their value set? So I've found people that are not, let's just use the election again, because that's such an easy one because there are two sides. And take out the people that are very extreme and they're vocal and critical of the other side, but there are people that have very strong value set, and there's certain things that parties represent that are important to them. And what I found is that the people that have those that aren't strongly arguing with everybody online, but we're in a conversation like you talked about with an intimate group of people where they're apologizing for well, I'm sorry that I'm different than you. I'm sorry that is that offensive to you that I'm not the same, but I had somebody say that over a fire pit conversation. Somebody new I met here, she kind of whispered to me, she said, I'm, because there was somebody else that had said, again, nothing volatile between, but made the comment that they were really for some Democratic candidates in our county. They were friends with a lady and they were asking people to put signs in their yard. And the other lady next to me whispered to me and said, we've always been conservative. We don't always agree with everything, but that's our values and how we vote. And she didn't say I'm sorry, but it was like she was apologizing to me, and then later she apologized in her own words. She was very rather than saying that's great, but that's not where we stand. And I don't want to put a sign in my yard. It was more of an apologetic approach,
Yeah.
and please understand me. And it shouldn't be like that. Do you
Right.
think?
Right. No. And so more research I did because I
Okay.
was very interested in this topic. Um, I looked up the definition of apologize,
Oh,
and
I
it's,
love that. That's one of my favorite things. Okay,
I
I'm ready.
know, I want to know exactly what the definition is. It's express regret for something that one has done wrong.
Wrong.
Wrong. So if you have feelings, that's not wrong. If you have beliefs that are different, that's not wrong. Like those are things that you don't need to apologize for.
And do you think the reason, look at, we're going deep. Do you
Yeah.
think the reason women apologize for these things is they don't want to have a bad reaction? Or like in the case of the friend in the Zoom call, she perceived a negative reaction to her comments, so she apologized for them. It is avoidance of a negative reaction. Do we want too much to be accepted? Do we want too much to be part of that group? So the apology and these unnecessary apologies on things that aren't wrong are because we want to be accepted or part of that group and not the outlier.
Right. And we want to be liked. We want to be,
Right.
there's so much to that. Yes. I think you're spot on with, and I think it has a lot to do with confidence and wanting to be liked. And I don't think men feel that need to be liked as much as women.
On the flip side, I'm thinking as we're talking of a female that I know, a good friend of mine, that has no problem saying what's on her mind, and she doesn't, like, she has no fear, like those things we talked about. She doesn't have, it's self-confidence, but she just doesn't have that trait about worrying about people telling stories about her or wanting to be like. She tends to be more male in that characteristic, okay, of that she just doesn't care. And she's one of the people I highly admire because she's never oppressive. And on the second, she doesn't judge other people. She actually enjoys conversation with people with different beliefs because she's curious. And back to being liked, I would tell you, I actually like and enjoy the company of people that have different beliefs because I learn more, or
Right.
without apologizing, because it almost gets too, everybody overthinks. You get in a conversation with women where they start apologizing a lot, it doesn't feel authentic or sincere. It feels like everybody's worried about what other people are thinking. That's if it's a truly not apologizing for something wrong. You know, go back to our past episode on owning your shit. That's completely different from overthinking something and apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. It's the opposite, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 Okay. Here's another, a quote I found. Um, it says, if you actually meant what you said, or you didn't cause, hold on a second. Okay, quote, never apologize for feelings. When you do, you apologize for truth.
I
I
love
thought that was
that.
interesting. Sorry, I was rereading. I was like, what am I reading?
Say it again.
Different line.
Say it again.
Again, here it is. Never apologize for feelings. When you do, you apologize for truth. And that's, I think, one of the things that we do. I'm sorry, I'm so mad. I'm sorry. I did that. Well, I apologized for actions yesterday. I was let me see, today's Friday. On Wednesday, something happened. I got something through email. Actually, I got something in the mail and I was kind of angry about it. And so I sent an email to the person and I'm like, I am really disappointed in this, and I was just like, rah, 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 rah. And then, so I didn't take the 10 seconds. I didn't count to 10. I didn't take a sip of my water. I just immediately hit that email and thought about it. On Thursday morning, I woke up and I was like, I was probably a little harsh there. So they had replied back and they were very nice about it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to apologize for lashing out, but I am still disappointed. But I was like, I feel like I may have overreacted.
Right.
Um, but but I probably did not need to apologize because went back to my email. I think my feelings I felt were lashing out. Like my feelings were intense, but my email actually read okay. But I still felt bad because I had these feelings, this anger.
Right. And that was the right thing to do. But I think you bring up a good point too, back to the action item on how how can women do a better job of not apologizing. You can
Right.
apply that the our 10-second rule, the pausing rule. And I think before you apologize, you should ask yourself, I go back to this quote, did I do something wrong or are these my feelings? Ask yourself that. I think
Right.
that'd be a question. Ask myself that. That's another just quick rule is ask yourself. And then back to that, remember the comment about overthinking things and wasting time, rather than spending that time worrying about what others are thinking. Okay, if it is feelings and not something wrong, it's actually a good time to think about, why do I have those feelings? What There's nothing wrong. Feelings are feelings. You know, if you feel
Feeling
it,
our
sometimes
feeling.
Garrett and I
Yes.
always say, if you feel it, say it. Doesn't mean your feelings are right either, right?
Right.
But not right, but feelings are feelings. So it's a good time to sift through them and say, okay, these strong feelings I'm having, or the reason I'm having this knee-jerk reaction with apologizing, am I not comfortable with these feelings? Are they upsetting me to the extent that I'm not able to have a good relationship with some of these people? Politics might be a good one with that. How is it stopping me? And, what things am I going to let go? It's a good time for inner assessment on the feelings, but that doesn't mean you need to apologize to the group. And it might help you be stronger in your feelings and say, that's okay. Maybe I'm going to be more careful of when I'm going to bring them up. Um, but think before you apologize. And if they are based off of feelings, you don't need to apologize unless you yelled it at people, or
Right. Right. What was your reaction?
what was your reaction? What was your tone?
Yes.
Um, did you ever read the book? And I have not. There's a book that it seemed that everyone was reading, called Girl, Go Wash Your Face, by Rachel Hollins, I believe.
I have not read that. I remember when it was very popular.
And I thought part of that was about not apologizing, right? Or am I
Yeah.
incorrect on that?
You could be. I know there were books around that topic too. Stop, Girl, Stop Apologizing. I think she might have had a second book.
Okay.
I'm not
So
sure.
our listeners are going to have to give us some feedback on whether that
Right.
is a book we should read or recommend. I got mixed reviews. I haven't read it yet. It was on my list, but I got very mixed. Some people, I felt like either people loved it or they really didn't like it. And there
That's
wasn't
kind
a
of
lot of
what
good
I heard.
opinion.
Yeah. I
And
got the same thing. So I never picked it up.
but I like to, again, back to getting input from other people. I think that would be a great thing if there is a good book out there. Uh, how about second guessing ourselves, Amy? This second guessing that leads to apologizing. Do you find this? I find myself second guessing myself a lot
Yeah.
and feeling bad. And in ways, I think there's good to that, because that means I care about how I act and my tone, and I want to do the best and be the best that I can. But do I spend too much time doing that? Do I spend too much time second guessing?
That's a good question. So second guessing to me is not bad because it means that you're trying to be self-aware of what you're doing. Because if you're not second guessing, then you're acting and doing and never doing any self-reflection on something. So, but I do think there's a balance. Like you can't be second guessing yourself all the time where it's all consuming. But I think second guessing, it's okay to do some of it.
And it depends on where it leads. If it leads to the group apology, or if it leads to 1 week of downtime because you can't get past it, that's bad. But if you challenge yourself to come up with, positive action out of it,
Right.
even if it's moving on, that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. What's the outcome we want from the reflection is probably, you don't want to wallow in it. Um, I found an article about when you should apologize.
Okay.
And it says, when you've done something that has caused pain to another person, intentional or unintentional. So this caught my attention because a lot of times we intentionally create pain for other people, and then that's probably when it's easier to apologize. But sometimes we may not know that we've done it, and we've done things unintentionally, and we're not apologizing when we probably should.
Right.
And I was thinking through this, like, where are we? How do we keep that in check too? So this unintentional stuff that we are reflecting on it and making sure that we're apologizing.
And how do you get that? Is it having the people that you have close friendships, or that actually are brave enough to tell you that you missed something? I think about, I think I've told this story in some of our podcasts about how I used to use the phrase, "that's a waste of time," to people
Yeah.
in the work setting. And somebody pulled me aside and said, okay, you got to change your words because you're telling people what they're doing. Because they'd bring something up and I would know, we don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. And I didn't realize I was using, I just, you can say something, even a phrase that just becomes part of your vocabulary and you don't even notice it. Could even be body language.
Yeah.
And bringing that, I'll never forget it. And I so appreciate that she brought that to my attention because I wasn't realizing it was a very stressful. We had high timelines. We were moving and I was, constantly trying to move things and I would use that language. And it was brave for that person to tell me and I did need to apologize because I was dismissive to other people in my words to them. And I honestly, as crazy as that sounds, I didn't realize that I was continuing to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's helpful to have people around you who will point stuff out. I do. Like what you just said. I think that's good. I also think it's important just to be open and being approachable so that people feel comfortable in giving you the feedback, because it could be someone unexpected giving you the feedback. I just went through this unintentional, I had to apologize unintentionally for hurting people and because I was diagnosed with COVID. And when that happened, I had to think through who I'd been with 48 hours prior to.
48 hours prior, okay.
Right. And so then I had to reach out to people and I did apologize. It was unintentional. We were wearing masks and all that. So there was only one person that I was with that I did not wear a mask. And it was brief and we were far apart, but still I felt horrible because, she was planning a trip and I had been, in her entryway without a mask. And I came home and had symptoms that night. And so she was like within 12 hours of my symptoms. So anyway, but going through that was difficult because unintentionally I could have hurt people. And I did feel the need to apologize. And, I'm just going to say most people were very gracious. And, but still, it was a challenge.
Interesting, Amy, because you really didn't do anything wrong, right? So it's a great example because especially with, I'm talking about the election, COVID's a whole other thing. But if we go back to our rationale, it really wasn't feelings, right? But you didn't really do anything wrong, but you feel bad, right? You feel bad
Right.
and guilty. And
Well,
that's
right.
another reason a lot of people apologize, because they feel bad, which back to somebody loses something happens. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry for you, right? That's not really apologizing, that's sympathy. But in this case,
Right.
yours was, you really didn't do anything wrong, but you feel bad. So is the
Right.
proper thing to apologize? Would a guy apologize? I'm sorry I put you through this. I feel bad that you're putting, that's, you know,
Right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know what a guy would have done. Um, I don't know with someone with a different mindset, but yeah, I
I'm
think
not saying either one's right or wrong. I'm not
right,
saying guy, but it's
right,
interesting back to how people respond. I think uh, most of my friends would apologize, and again, apologize because they feel like they've done something bad, because you never want to expose someone. You never, I guess part of it is intentionally or unintentionally, you're sorry because it's something that you, if you would have known about it, you never would have done it, right?
right,
Or you never would
ex-
have, you wouldn't have left the house.
right, exactly.
And I don't think anybody, I think if anything, back to how you have the response from somebody else is, you know, appreciative that it matters to you and that you're handling it. I'm, you know, I'm sorry for inconveniencing you. I'm sorry for putting this on you.
Right, right, right. I think that's the key, is to be humble enough to acknowledge that you did create inconvenience for someone else.
I mean, I'm thinking back to friendships when I was younger, because maturity comes with it too, right?
Yeah.
Because with maturity, we become more confident. And, but I remember, you know, having friends that I would consider and classify as needy when I was in my 20s, that I mean, I could be with them for a few hours and they'd be apologizing for everything through that entire time. And I was drained by the time we were done, you know,
Right.
because I'm sorry, should I have done that? I should have had you go first. I mean, everything was an apology. And it's like, stop, because the other side is it wears on you.
Yeah. Yeah, because it almost makes you feel like you're making them feel bad. Like
Right.
you, it's almost like you're creating this expectation that they need to keep apologizing, like
Right.
you're doing something to send them the messages that they're goofing up.
Okay, so one other twist I'm going to bring up to this theme is how to avoid getting to the point of needing to apologize. So one thing I'm thinking through is relationships, and this time instead of talking about friends, um, this would actually go with kids too, but like close relationships. But I'm talking about significant others now. And if you've ever read the book, is it called The Four Love Languages, where they talk about you have
Five.
different love
Yeah.
languages? Is it five? Sorry,
Yes.
five.
Up the five.
Five. My
I
counting
love.
is bad. I can run election statistics, but I cannot count the love languages. But with it's a very good book because it talks about, you know, I get back to my happiness factor and your action and what your values impact your best actions, and it's understanding how people come from different places. But a lot of it is helping couples realize that they're wired differently and they need affirmation in different ways, and how you can quickly, I think they call it the crazy cycle. I think it was in this book that they talk about the crazy cycle and how you can get on, like, you just feel like you're in totally different planets,
Yeah.
and not understanding the other, like with love language, how you get there. But there's something Garrett and I, and so when you get to that point, just to finish that thought, when you get to that point, then you're apologizing because bad words come out, you don't understand each other, but you get to the point that sometimes you've done something wrong, sometimes you say, usually it's tone, but you're to the point of apologizing or feeling bad because of how you've reacted to the other. So it's kind of both, you know. It can be apologizing because you need to, because you lashed out, and it could be apologizing because you feel bad because you later figure out you misunderstood the other. But Garrett and I always have this rule, and it gets back to that John Mayer song. Everything goes back to a song or lyrics. Uh, it's the one about say it. If say, oh gosh, what is the John Mayer one? Say what you mean to say. I think that's what it is. Say what
Oh,
you mean to
yeah,
say. And I think he wrote it over a relationship because they just couldn't communicate. And we have this rule that is, if you feel it, say it, but it always has a caveat of that doesn't mean I'm right. Okay. So I'm going to tell you how I feel. And a lot of times feelings come from baggage. And the older we get, the more baggage
right.
we have on things that can trigger us, things that make us emotional, things that upset us because of an experience I had in the past, of what he had in the past. And so when we come into something like, back to not spinning on things, if we come into a conversation early, just like, okay, I got to tell you how I feel. And then sometimes we'll even reiterate with, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel right now. And it could be something silly. Think about how things can escalate. You just redid my loading the dishwasher, and my roommate at college used to do that, and she was really mean to me. I mean, whatever, right? But
Right.
think about
Yeah.
the small things that escalate into feelings and issues and overthinking and later apologizing. But if you start with back to feelings being a good thing, if you feel it, say it, you have a conversation. And if it doesn't start with the pretense of I'm trying to convince you that I'm right, almost always we don't have silly fights, because
Right.
that's how we approach things. And I try to do that with my kids. A lot of times we talk about kids, is I might have feelings because I am the parent and I had a similar experience to what they had. They have feelings because and if we approach it by here's how I feel, doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. It's a much better conversation, and we avoid those apologizing, constant apologizing, and getting to that point.
Right.
Say what you mean to say. That was definitely the song.
I can hear it in my head.
Yeah.
That's a good song. There's a book I'm reading, and I think we should do a whole podcast on this. It's called
Okay.
Thanks for the Feedback.
Ooh,
I know
like
I
that.
brought it up way back when, and I'm finally like about halfway through it. It is really insightful about feedback and giving feedback and listening. And I thought about the 5 love languages when I was reading that too, because it kind of ties to how you're communicating love to each other and how you're just the whole thing. So I think that could be a future topic that we can really dig into, on how to give and receive feedback.
Okay, I'm going to add that one, Amy. I need to read the book because, to be completely transparent, it's taken me a long time, and it's not something I've naturally enjoyed getting. And my husband loves to get feedback. Like, he thrives on it. He asks for it. He loves it. It has taken me an evolution of maturity to accept feedback, to ask for feedback. It's not a natural thing for me. And it's kind of embarrassing to say that. I think it's back to the fear of rejection or not wanting. I'm a very positive person, so I don't like to hear the negative. And
Yeah, and I think you're not
that's a
alone with
great
that.
thing.
I think it's a hard thing, and it also depends on how people are giving you the feedback. And so, yes, it's just
I'm
really a good
reading it.
book.
Reading it.
Yeah,
I love it. We've got a good book recommendation. And have
yes,
you finished
I'm.
it? Or are you in the middle of reading it?
What?
Have you finished it?
I know I'm still in the middle of it. So
Mhm.
the first part is all about some triggers
Okay.
about feedback, and then the second part goes into relationships. So like how to give and receive feedback in relationships. So it's kind of you alone, what triggers you, and then how to deal with other
I love
people.
it. Totally going to
So
do
I'm
that.
on part 2 right now. Yeah, it's good. I've highlighted a lot of and folded pages down. Like, this is
You know,
good.
Amy, we probably have to move on to the questions, but one quick question I have is, have you ever heard the phrase, I hear this in business a lot, where they tell their employees, stop telling yourself stories, because
Yes.
people can make up. And I think back to the apologizing, I'm thinking of a few examples of people who, I'll get a random text saying, I think I upset Garrett, or you didn't like how I did something at work. And I'm like, where did this story? And then after talking it through with them, you find that it was some reaction, and somehow that built up into a story in their head that never
Yeah.
happened. And we tell ourselves stories. The more we overthink something,
Yeah.
we tell ourselves stories that aren't real. We do that. We all do that. And you got to fact check yourself and say, okay, did I create this story because I am, and most of the time they're not true. Because and my point to people, once they'll say to me, I think so-and-so doesn't like me, I need to reach out to her because I offended her when I said this, or somebody's husband doesn't doesn't want me around. Where did that come from? And they'll tell me, and it's like, you have fabricated this story. And one thing I'll always say to them is, you're assuming that they are thinking about you, or that, it's not about you. Most people don't really care about you or anybody. They're thinking about themselves. So you fabricated a story that likely doesn't matter. And as mean as it sounds, they probably don't even care. They're not thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you. And is
Right.
that a natural human thing to think that everything is about me?
So I think that stories in your head is in crucial conversations. I think that's where I remember they do a
Right?
really good piece in that book about the stories in your head and how you're creating them. And
That's
it's
probably
so
different from
true.
people. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
that is so true though. What you said is people, we create these stories in our head. And yeah,
And
we
most
had a
of the time,
thing.
people are worrying about themselves and their day. And
Yeah,
this story you created that revolves around you, as mean as it sounds, people are, they're worrying about themselves. Most of the time, it's so not true.
right, right. And the stories that you create about what other people are thinking in their heads, like about whatever, about anything, the assumptions you're making.
Right.
I'm always like, never make assumptions. Okay, let's move into our questions. We've got a couple of good ones here today. First question, what's another way to say, I'm sorry that happened to you? Um, so I read this question. I have some of the nicest friends. I'm just gonna say that. And I say that in wholeheartedness. Like they're really nice. And I get this sometimes when I'm complaining about something, or if oh, I tripped and hit my toe, they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. And I know they mean, I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm always like, you don't have to apologize. So I'm a little like, is it really an apology they want to convey? Like what's really what the message is?
I'm going to, there's somebody who may or may not be my mother that, not, I'm sorry it happened to you. It's almost one step, not worse, but back to that knee-jerk reaction. People don't know what to say, so they say these phrases. And it would drive this person, who may or may not be my mother, crazy. An example I give is, she came from the gym and she had said, I don't know, maybe she had an injury, she wasn't going to do a weight, and the lady next to her said, I will pray for you. And she's like, I didn't ask her to pray for me, and it's kind of like, I'm sorry that happened to you. It's like, back to some people, that phrases like that really annoy them, because back to the apology, or what they're trying to convey, is maybe not authentic, repeated. That's, I would say, I don't know if that makes sense. The
Yeah.
heart of that comment is that people, I'll pray for you. They don't know what else to say. It might, I'm sorry that happened to you. The intent, I go back to motive. I think the motive is pure, but they don't know what to say. So they have these phrases, and that's one of the phrases. So it really is an apology. They want to say something positive. They want to be encouraging. So they have phrases that they give, and most people will just take them. Frankly, when people say things like that, I think it comes from a good place. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does. Like, I'm not being back to
Yeah.
other people, because it is a repeated phrase. It is a kind of, you could take it as sucks to be you too, right?
Right.
Are
True.
you better to say nothing, or are you better to, so back to the question. So the question is, what's another way to say, I'm sorry that happened to you? Sometimes I do
So
say, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah, so I'm more of a, oh, that's a bummer. Um, because I think it's women who do this, and it's a way to show empathy.
Right.
I
It's
think that's
empathetic.
really, so we're trying to show empathy, but we're doing it with an apology. And maybe if we can just shift away from the apology, so it's more a different way to show empathy.
And I think sometimes you can add to it by saying, maybe adding something to say, uh, depending on what it is, an action item, like, can I help you? Do you need somebody to help run the kids around tonight?
Right.
Do I, is there something I can help with? And if they say, so I think where appropriate, I have to stop myself from having diarrhea of the mouth, because usually if there's silence or that pregnant pause, my natural reaction is blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
to be very intentional with something, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's such a bummer. If there's something you can do, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. Do you need, walk around the lake? I mean, is there something you can add to it to offer to them to help out? Is there anything you need right now that I can help you with?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'd say is it's to make a statement. What do you want to convey? If you really want to do something for them, ask, and don't always tell them, you can propose something, but is there anything I can do? Right?
Yeah. Right.
Is there anything I can do? And so people, that's the things I do appreciate when people bring up, because sometimes I will hit them up on something, yeah, I'd like to just get out and have dinner and talk about it more. Or,
Right.
and some people might say, can you just pray for me? Some people might want that, which is great.
Right.
So don't
Right.
offer it. Let them all ask you. A lot of people will say, can
Right.
you pray for me?
Right.
Great.
Yeah. Right. I think that's great. That's a good advice to ask people what they need. It's a better connection.
Be ready to react with it too. If
Right.
you're going to ask what they need, you can't do everything, but be that person.
Right.
Be that person. Be the good person.
Right.
Not just lip service. Mean it.
A really good point. If you're going to ask for it, you have to be willing to
Deliver.
deliver. Good. All right. Our next question is, what's the real in this and what's the ideal? So I'm going to go back to this study, and the real is we as women tend to have a lower bar of what we need to apologize for. So knowing that we need to, I think creating that awareness gives us a little bit of a grace when we do apologize, and also a little bit of a grace to maybe not be so hard on ourselves a little bit, because we are being harder on ourselves.
Okay, I think that's a great reel. I'll take the ideal, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, but I think the ideal is sorting out feelings from being wrong and using the opportunity to think through your feelings, but stop apologizing for feelings, and own your shit and apologize for what's wrong. But before you go there, back to your bar and knee-jerk reaction, take the time to think through which one and apologize for the things you should be apologizing for. That's the ideal.
Good. Yeah, I love that. The feelings one is huge. Like, stop apologizing for your feelings, because I like what you said. Your feelings are what they are. Yeah.
We do. We have so much experience and baggage, and we could both probably think through triggering points. There's certain things that can trigger me, and I will think through, like, if I have this email's a good example, Amy. I get an email and right away it's there'll be a certain email that will just trigger me, and I definitely have to tell myself, do use the 10-second rule. Do not answer on your phone, because maybe I need to read it closer. I could have missed, but it's a trigger. And work, there's a lot of things that could trigger with work, because you had a bad experience with a boss. You had a client that was constantly wanting you on 24/7. And so when somebody else sends me an email at 8, my knee-jerk reaction is they're being disrespectful of my time. And it's a trigger. So it's a feeling. And it isn't necessarily, so back to, your point on answering, if I just simply answered and, identify the feelings before causing a problem to apologize would be that situation. But we have triggering points that are going to happen because we are so human, and we do have life experiences that shape us, good and bad.
And this goes back to episode number, I don't know what number it was, of Own Your Shit. Like,
gosh, I'm going to guess 3.
If you do mess up, just just own it and apologize for it.
Okay, own your shit was number 6.
Episode 6. Very good.
Episode 6.
And that was one of my favorites.
And that looked
There
like
were some good stories in there.
July 23rd. That was own your shit. One quick thing, Amy, because I know we have a little bit of time. How does this apply to our kids? What are your thoughts on that? About our kids, especially, I have boys, but that's okay. But back to stop apologizing. I think if anything with them, sometimes I have to tell them they're men to apologize more. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But how does this relate to our children? How can we instill this? Is it confidence with the girls? Is it, because we talk a lot about life experience. Now we have this more figured out when we're older. How does it apply to the 20-something female?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever had this conversation with my girls, and I'm trying to think through if they're big apologizers. I'm not recognizing that in any of them. So
is there a generational thing here?
I wonder if it's
we're at that age.
That's interesting. That's what I was just thinking. I wonder if this is generational and it's more of our generation versus the younger ones. I'm going to have to do some research. I feel like I do this every time we get off this call. I'm going to have to call my girls and ask them.
Ask them, because I feel like the 20-something girls in my life, my nieces, they're very bold.
Right.
And they don't apologize when they shouldn't. Like they're very bold with their feelings. But on the other hand, I don't find, so I'm thinking through many of, the women I know that age are very bold with their feelings. They don't apologize for feelings, but I would not categorize them as not apologizing or owning their shit, because I feel like they do that too.
Right.
So that's interesting. We'll have to do a little research, because my generation, when we were in our 20s, I probably had more of friends that were, because I was probably more self-confident at that age, that people that annoyed me because they did the apologizing all the freaking time, right?
Right.
Well, I didn't think my group was that bold. The ones that were bold with their feelings stood out more and were the minority. But I could be wrong. Maybe it was just my situation.
I am not, I'm not coming up with any of my girls or their friends that are people who apologize for just stuff they don't need to apologize for. Like I can't come up with anyone. Even my son's friends and the girls, they're
right.
I can't think of anyone. So maybe this is generational, which is good. I'm just going to say that's good, because that means maybe this will kind of resolve itself.
You do the research, and it was interesting. Last night we had a book club discussion. It was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, and he did A Man Called Ove. He is a very good writer, and we gave it 4.5 stars out of the group. He's a great writer. But one of the discussion questions was about some of the generational, that some of the conversation and stories in the book, were they generational, and was it negative toward the millennials, and kind of little digs here and there. And my comment was, I said, I admire millennials. I tend to be one of those people that looks at traits that are distinct with that generation that I wish there was more of. So I tend to be more, I kind of got a girl crush on some of the way that those 20-something women act. I wish I was more like that when I was younger. I admire them. So that's probably more of, I don't like to stereotype or categorize, but I'd say my overall feeling is not to be the typical, oh, they don't know what they're doing, or mine tends to be more admiration.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with that. I will ask the girls about this and get some feedback and report next time.
I want to hear. All right, what is our wrap question?
Wrap question today is, okay, let's start looking forward. Yay, elections are over.
Wait a second, Amy. our
What?
election's over. They will be by, I am
Voting
confident by
over.
the time everybody listens to this, the elections are over.
Oh gosh, I hope so.
And I just want to add, even though I turned my text off, my texts are blowing up right now. So it might be over while we're talking. It might be over while we're talking. So we will find out.
I know I'm getting tons of texts too. We have several group texts going on. So there's lots of, we don't know that elections are completely over, but voting is over. And now
It's
we're
getting
just
exciting.
waiting.
Hey, here's another podcast episode. Shit's getting real.
Yeah, that's true. We'll do that in January.
Okay. So looking
Okay.
forward, now that elections
Yeah.
are over or close to over or behind us.
Behind us somewhere.
Polling's over.
Polling's over. Our focus can shift to the holidays.
Yay.
What are you planning for Thanksgiving?
I have absolutely no idea, but there is one thing on my mind, just because, we're just, travel isn't high. I would anticipate, haven't even had the conversation with Larry, my father-in-law, or Garrett, because we all live together. I'm assuming we'll buy the turkey. It will just be the three of us. Maybe we'll have a good ski day that Garrett and I will run up and hit Purgatory and go skiing. We're going to get some snow this weekend, but I'll tell you the one thing that is on my mind is I love Halloween and fall, and I have all kinds of fall Halloween. Some are very Halloweeny, some are very fall-y, but I follow this decor rule. That is my rule. I do not take down Halloween. I let my Halloween and fall stay together, and then I do, because when I put out my decor, I put a lot of things away, like flip the boxes into storage. So what I do is on Thanksgiving and the day after, I take all my Christmas stuff and I do this huge take down the Halloween fall and put up the Christmas. And since we've never been in this house for Christmas, I find my mind constantly thinking about, maybe I'll put a tree there, and it's a small space. What do I have? And I bought some new. So I'm very excited for switching out fall to Christmas for decor. And I want to go all out with the decor, because if we're going to be home a lot, we're doing the decor, baby. So that's my thing. It really isn't about, it's about the decorations. So good, bad, or other, that, and I hope we get some snow for skiing. That's what I got.
Very fun. So I will say the first year we were in this house, we moved in the spring. So in the fall, it was like, ooh, I was doing the same thing about Christmas. Where's the Christmas tree gonna go? And oh, I think I need a bigger Christmas tree because I have a higher ceiling.
Right.
And so there was a sale on Christmas trees early November, and I bought the Christmas tree and I put it up early November. And I'm like, all of our neighbors are going to think I'm crazy that I decorate early November, but it was like, oh, I can't wait to get the tree up. And then I wanted to take a picture for the Christmas card. And so, because we were also doing our change of address. So anyway, tree was up early November that year. It was so fun. I was like, this is great. It was good. Thanksgiving is going to be different for us here too, just because one of my girls is in Chicago. And her coming home would mean she'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks when she went back right now. And so she's in college, and so she's going to be there by herself. She doesn't listen to this podcast, so I'm not really worried about this, but I'm sending her a care package, which is kind of fun because she's going to do Thanksgiving with her boyfriend's family. They're just outside of Chicago, so she'll have somebody.
Good.
But I'm sending her a care package with ingredients for one of her favorite dishes so that she can make it herself or take it with her to make it there, and that she can still have it for Thanksgiving.
Amy, I'm going to do that with my boys, because there's no way I'm going to see them for Thanksgiving. That's fine. It's just not even, people think because we're in Colorado, we see each other. No, it's 6 hours and 2 mountain passes. We don't, there's no going in. No, that's not going to happen. But I love the care package because two hope to get together because they're by each other, and that, and even with some fun things to send to them, and back to listening. None of them are listening to this, even though my middle one's always promoting it, and that has friends that are female call me and say, I love your podcast. So good. Not my listen. So that's all good. But I like the care package idea.
Yeah. I got the stuff to make pumpkin bread, and then a macaroni and cheese corn bake that all my kids think is like the bomb. It's so bad for you, but They love it. So I'm like,
We're talking about Thanksgiving. And Amy, I'm not going to lie, my dog is whining by the door, and I think I just heard your dog. So I think that means time's up, right?
did you? I can't believe you could hear my dog.
Well,
Sorry about that.
Back in the day it was babies. Now I hear dogs. So
I know, isn't that funny?
all
Yeah.
right,
So thank you. Great conversation, and
we'll
looking
talk
forward to
next
next
week.
time. All
Okay.
right. Thanks.